Hi, I'm Megan, and thanks for joining me for this somatic yoga video. I did one last week that was about learning when we're holding tension in our muscles by using the ground. And we use the ground for two different reasons to feel our muscles. One would be to push into the ground, so the force of pushing in can create contraction in the muscles. And then the other way is to pull away from the ground. So if you're seated or wherever you are, even if your feet are on the ground, just take a moment to think about that principle of creating force in your muscles by pushing into it, into the floor, into the ground, or pulling away from it. And we're going to explore that a little bit more explicitly through the arms and the legs, and then we'll see how that relationship forms between arms and legs and the lovely torso. So no props necessary unless you want to put something on top of your mat, although this is a good practice to have a solid surface underneath you so you can really feel the ground. But if you do like a pillow, you can pillow your head. Just watch that if you're pillowing your head, we're not bringing the chin into a forward position. We want to have a neutral neck. So wherever you are seated, that's the neck position we want to keep. So we're coming down onto the ground. Take a moment to take your knees bent position and just let your shoulders come to the sides. We're going to do a couple of pelvic tilts first just to release the low back. So the last video dealt with feeling tension through the torso itself. We pushed in and pulled away along the spine. So this one, like I said, we're going to take it into the limbs, the arms and the legs, into the periphery. But we want to relax the back first. So just feel the position of your back and find your breathing. You can even place your hands on your belly. Feel the inhalation, allow your belly to rise and fill. And notice the exhalation, just letting the abdomen fall and empty. And that's the first part. This is already creating force in our body of pushing in and pulling away. So the inhalation we start to imagine as a pulling away from. We'll start with that. So as your belly fills, imagine there's a lightness or a levity to the abdomen. And as you breathe in, let the abdomen lift. And what you'll notice is as the abdomen lifts, feels like a helium balloon, the low back lifts as well. So you're pulling away from the ground with the low back. And then as you breathe out, let the back just land. So I'm not going to push into the ground, I'm just going to let it land. So we'll do just that first. Inhale, abdomen fills. And I feel my abdomen lift my low back away from the ground, so pulling away, and exhale, coming in for a nice soft, slow landing. And just feeling that, feel the force of gravity. You might feel the tilting of the pelvis. It's a forward tilting, so the front of the pelvis is going forward and upward, and then we just release back down. And checking your foot position, I'm in what's called constructive rest. So my feet are right underneath my knees, about as wide as my hips. Feet are soft and legs relaxed. So just starting with feeling this through the pelvis, because the pelvis is the center of our universe, even as far as the arms and legs go. The way the body reads us, so body mapping, is that your pelvis is actually attached all the way to the tips of your toes and the tips of your fingers. Think of it that way. If all of these lines of fascial tissue, of energy running through your body, everything is interconnected to your center here, your core center. And then we're going to switch this slightly. So notice on your exhalation how there's a drawing in or a recoiling of the abdomen. So now as you're feeling that drawing in on exhalation, gently press the low back and low ribs into the ground. And then inhale and just release. I'm not going to lift all the way up, I'm just going to release back to neutral. And exhaling, gently pressing low back and low ribs down. And you'll feel that drawing in through the abdomen. Inhaling, releasing. And exhaling, drawing down. So that little pushing into. And what you might notice is now the pelvis is tilting downward towards the ground and back. You'll notice it maybe in the feeling of your tailbone lifting at the bottom of the exhalation. And then we just release And you're just that little bit of pressure creating force, pressing the back down. And releasing. So a lot of what we do in somatics is voluntary movement. We're asking our body to move in this pattern. And then we're going to put the two together. So you're going to inhale and pull away from with the low back and low ribs, or just think of the belly floating the low back off. Maybe that's more comfortable. And then as you breathe out, gently press the low back down and notice how the abdomen naturally contracts towards the front of the spine. Inhale, abdomen fills and picks the low back up off the ground. So with as little force as possible to create this movement. So we want to be efficient but comfortable. And exhale, pressing down. So just think of these forces of pulling away from on the inhalation and pushing into on the exhalation. So we're purposely recruiting specific muscles, and just enough that you can make this movement, you can feel this like your pelvis is a bowl. It is a bowl, and you're tilting it back and forth. And then notice, what muscles do you feel shorten or contract? So can you sense, is your low back tightening? It doesn't have to. Maybe you're just floating up, but as you're coming into that inhale. And exhaling, can you feel your abdominal wall contract and the low back stretch? You might even sense movement in your pelvic floor diamond. So we generally feel a stretching in the area around the pelvic floor as we breathe in. And there should be that recoil or contraction, just like the abdomen with the pelvic floor as well. So they play together nicely, or they should. Also take a moment just to notice if your head is vibing and moving with the pelvis. If not, that's okay, but this is one of the reasons we don't want the head up on a pillow like this. We want the head in a neutral position because it's going to encourage this tail to tongue movement. So as I inhale and lift the low back, we're creating more contraction in the low back. But what happens is the low back contracts and the chin comes towards the chest and the back of the neck. There's these two secondary curves. So the lower curve is getting bigger and the upper curve in the neck is getting, the lower curve, it's arching away from the ground, and the back of the neck is getting longer. So the low back shortens and the neck lengthens. And then as you exhale, just the opposite. You're pressing down into the ground, so the low back is going to get long, and the chin typically goes away from the chest, and the back of the neck curves and gets shorter. So you can feel yourself through those secondary curves in the lumbar spine and the back of the neck. Inhaling creates the arch in the low back and the lengthening in the back of the neck. The exhale creates the lengthening in the low back and the arching in the back of the neck. And just find that tail to tongue movement, just doing a few more of these. And we're still working through this premise of pulling away from on the inhale and pushing into on the exhale. If you want to add a little bit more leg movement into this today, keep your feet where they are, and as you inhale, let yourself fall onto the pinky toe side of the feet. So you're coming into that arch. Inner thighs will stretch. As you exhale, squeeze the thighs back in. This might also help you to feel more contraction through the pelvic floor and the abdominal wall. Inhale, drop onto the pinky toe side. See if you can feel more stretch in the inner thighs, belly, and pelvic floor. Exhale. Draw in, bring the legs back up. We're just starting a little bit of movement through the legs. But the main reason for beginning with the pelvis is, again, it's the center of the universe, and we want that area to be awake and alert as we work with arms and legs. So pause for a moment. If you'd like to draw your legs into your body, you can. You can roll around. Always taking that moment to pause. And we're going to take the legs out long. And as you do that, go slow, because if you feel that big arch like we were creating on the inhalation, we may want to put something underneath the knees, but if you can get those legs out comfortably, and then sometimes once the legs get out, you got to jelly roll them around a little bit. You can rock the pelvis back and forth. Whatever you can do to maintain contact with the ground underneath your shoulders, your pelvis, and you might feel that light lift, but we don't want to feel like we're lifting way up off the low back. So just let the low back relax down onto the ground. Take a few breaths there. And we're going to start with the left leg today. So your feet can be about as wide as your hips, or you can go wider if that feels better. Right leg is on holiday, so let that relax. And with the left leg, you're going to turn the toes and the kneecap up towards the sky. So you're going to, even doing that, notice how that creates force. Just let it go then. And you could do that on an inhale if you'd like. Don't have to do it to your breath, but you can turn your toes and your kneecap upward and notice that creation of contraction in your body, right? You're voluntarily feeling the muscles in that leg and then just release them. So we're going to add into that. So visualize that whole left leg line from the, I like to see the heel because I'm sort of pressing through my heel as I turn my toes and my kneecap up. But now you're going to turn the toes and the kneecap up, not your nose. You can turn your nose up too if you want. Toes and kneecap up, and then you're going to push. We're going to do the push in first. You're going to push your leg into the ground. And not so much that you feel any sort of discomfort in your joints, certainly in your hip joint, in your knee, but you can think of pushing the back of the calf into the ground. Probably the thigh's not touching the ground, but you can imagine that. If you're not feeling anything at all, then if you do have a blanket handy, I probably should have said, I'll put it in the notes, have a blanket there. What you can do, we used a washcloth last week, but what you can do is put a blanket underneath your thigh and your knee. So if you tend to have a little bit more bend in your knee, then that blanket can go underneath there so you have something to push into. Like maybe I would need mine a little bit higher here. But if you like that a little extra bend, or if your thighs are further from the floor when you extend your leg, you're really not going to feel the ground when you push into it. So the blanket can be something to feel. So you're pushing the back of the thigh, you're turning your kneecap and your toes up and then pushing. So we're creating that force that it almost feels maybe like strain in the body. You can hold it for a few breaths and then let it go. What you want to start to notice is, first of all, is the only place that you're creating this tension the left leg? Or when you do the left leg, do you feel tightness in your shoulders, your jaw, anywhere else in the body? Just sort of scan your body. And then remember to shake it out, jelly roll it. And that's the other thing we notice. We notice, when we're at the point of contraction, and you can hold it for a few breaths, is there tension anywhere else? Because there doesn't need to be. But also notice when you go to relax it, does it actually relax? And maybe you need to shake it out a little bit. So we're pushing into the ground or into the blanket if you want that blanket underneath you. And I notice right away, I've got sort of a tricky left knee right now, so I'm feeling a lot in my kneecap. And that's part of the sensation. If you have anything like that, maybe feel it in the top of the thigh, just remember that when we work with discomfort in our body, that you have to ask yourself questions like, am I actually doing any harm? So you're doing tissue damage versus just feeling discomfort. And is it discomfort? Is it shooting pain? And just creating that force of contraction. So we might be able to learn, what does contraction feel like in that left leg? And are there times when we're contracting the leg when we don't need to, right? Because the body's natural place to be, response is to be relaxed. But we often hold tension in certain muscles. We'll do one more pushing into, and then let it go, shake it out. And then we're going to continue to work with the left leg. But this time, you're going to turn the toes and the kneecap up, so that's the initial engagement of the muscles. And we're going to pull away from. And when you pull away from, if you want to start easy, you could just bend your knee and keep the back of the heel on the ground. So that's the first version. Pull away from there, and you're going to feel those muscles engage. And then release the knee back down. Or if you want a little bit more, turn the kneecap and the toes up and actually lift the whole leg line. And then you're going to feel more in your core and your pelvis as well. And we still release. So once again, it's this initial engagement, turning toes and kneecap up, lift the leg or just bend the knee, but create that force. And when I'm lifting it, I like to push through the heel a little bit, but also plug my thigh bone into the hip. That helps to feel the connection to the pelvis and engage a little bit more by pushing through the heel. And then releasing down. I'm not necessarily doing this to my breath because one breath per movement seems to go too fast and I don't have time to really feel it all the way through. And the other thing is when I'm holding that leg up, I check. Am I pushing into my right leg or a shoulder anywhere? Is anything else lifting? Or can I just isolate just this left leg, creating this sense of strength, the muscles wrapping around the bones, and then releasing. Let's do just a few more with that left leg. Toes up, kneecap. It's like your kneecap is drawing up your thigh. That creates that first force of muscular contraction, and then we lift it up. We're just bending the knee, and then let it go. Let it completely relax. So you might feel a little fatigue if you're getting those thigh muscles to do what they should be doing, but there's a difference between fatigue and feeling muscles working, especially new muscles, versus pain in joints. We want to stay away from pain in the joints. And lifting up. Check to see you're not pushing in anywhere else in your body. So we're lifting away from with the left leg. And then let it come down. Relax it out. And then we'll pause for a moment and just feel the two legs. And what we did was pretty simple from a standpoint of movement, right? But notice how it feels to the body. How does it feel to the brain, to the nervous system? Does it feel simple? Or is it pretty evident in your body, in your felt sense, that your two legs feel different? And if so, how? Just write a little bit of a story. You know, it's one thing to say, yeah, they feel a little different, but it's another to say one leg feels lighter, heavier, or longer, or shorter, or more relaxed, more fatigued. It doesn't matter what we come up with in this story, it's the fact that your nervous system is listening and it's writing this story. It's remapping you, it's feeling you. It's setting that GPS again. And then we're going to work with the right leg. So I know for me it did help to take the blanket underneath. If you want to do the blanket, you could put it underneath the thigh, especially if your thigh is way away from the ground, because we'll be pushing into first. So you can put that blanket right underneath your thigh. Now the left leg is on holiday. Shake it out. Let it just go on into its cabana somewhere. And right leg, see yourself from the toes or the heel all the way up to the hip crease. Visualize your right leg line. Turn the toes and the kneecap up. Feel that little bit of strengthening even there, maybe just drawing the kneecap up the thigh, and then push into the ground with the heel, the calf, the thigh, anywhere along the back of the leg line. So we're pushing into gravity. We're pushing in with gravity, and then we're letting it go. Same thing. So there's a lot of discussion about what is gravity. I talked about that in the last video. Is it a pushing into? Is it a pulling away from? I believe that when we find grace in gravity, I think that's a good term for it. Grace in gravity, it's comfort. It's not a pushing into or a pulling away from. It's a source of support where we don't have to create force. But right now we're purposely creating force by pressing the back of the right leg line into the ground, engaging those muscles, and then noticing, can we completely relax them? So we start to see ourselves differently. We start to notice maybe there's times where you're feeling these contractions, or these contractions are happening involuntarily, and we can start to notice that, right? What does it feel like to keep these muscles tight? And it's not just your leg. You might feel it all the way through your buttocks or your low back, anywhere on that right side, relaxing. But like I said, you also might feel it in your shoulders or your neck or your head. So we want to watch that we're not creating any sort of tension anywhere else in the body. Just this right leg is having its moment in the spotlight. Toes up, kneecap, let it go. And then let that relax. We're going to switch. Another thought I just had, if you are feeling pulling in the low back, and like I said, you could have the blanket underneath both thighs, But the other option is you can go to whichever leg you're not working on, the foot could be on the floor. So if you like this one and you end up doing it at home or whatever, the opposite leg could be on the floor if it's more relaxed that way. That's another way to approach this. But now we're going to go to the pull away from. So feel your right leg line again from the toes to the hip. Point your toes and your kneecap upward. You might press through the heel a little bit. And then first, let's just bend the knee and come onto the back of the heel. So lift your kneecap up towards the sky, pulling away from, and then come down, relax. So that's our starter position. Think of lifting the back of the knee, pulling it away from the ground, and then relax. And it's not more is better. In fact, the slower, the softer the motions, the more your brain is soaking up the information. But if you'd like to go to turning kneecap and toes up, engaging the leg, press through the heel a little bit, plug the thigh bone into the hip, and you can lift the whole right leg line. And notice I'm not going way up here either. All you have to do is lift it maybe just a couple inches off the ground, an inch or two, and then let it go. Relax it. So you'll notice as we're pulling away from, a little bit more engagement through the abdominal wall perhaps. And what we watch for there too is that in order to be able to use some of these front pelvic muscles, if the leg's coming up and you're arching your back, that means you're trying to use your back muscles. So see if you can keep that low back on the ground. If that's not happening easily, then that idea of bending the left leg, keeping the foot on the ground might help you to explore the right leg extended without that pulling in the low back. So keeping that foot on the ground and then letting it go. It's just an exploration. This is a little bit like there's a meditation practice we do called progressive muscle relaxation. And so what we're purposely doing is engaging, contracting muscles, and then sticking with it all the way through to feel them release back to that state of grace. So we're familiarizing our brain with what it feels like to create that contraction and tightness. And there might already be tightness there, and we're actually going beyond our natural tightness. But then, just as important, feeling what it feels like to just let the floor support the weight of your leg. Not just letting it relax. Do one or two more on this right side, and I do encourage you to hold it for a few breaths. Check your breathing. Notice what muscles are lighting up, and then let it go completely. Relax it. Shake it out. And I'm going to move the blanket out of the way. Because we're long a lot for this practice and lying down, it's good in between. You can come back to feet on the ground. It will feel really nice now probably to go back to that pelvic tilting. And inhale, lift the low back away from the ground, or think of the belly lifting away. And exhaling, gently pushing into it, the low back. Because we did this one already, so if you're coming back into the pelvic tilting with me, let's change things up, because that's another part of somatics is we want to have true freedom in our body. We should be able to make the same movement, but just in different ways, using different muscles. So now what happens if in this pelvic tilt, we inhale and think of pushing into with the tailbone? How does that feel? Versus lifting away from with the low back. And then as you breathe out, lift away from with the tailbone. So if you do this movement from the tailbone, pushing into on inhale, and then pulling away from on exhale, is that different? It accomplishes the same movement, right? But is that different? Does it feel different than pulling away from the low back and the belly on the inhale and pushing into with the low back on the exhale? So we can move from the belly, low back area, right around the navel center and behind it, or we can move from the tailbone. And you're just using the floor to locate where you are and to create these forces of tension, engaging muscles, and then releasing. Last round. And then as we work with the arms, you're welcome to take the legs back out long again if that's better for you, or you can keep the knees bent. I like to keep the knees bent, but I like to give them a little bit more relaxation, so I walk my feet out and let the big toes turn inward and the inner knees fall together. If you're a person that likes Somatic here, you can also let the legs fall out, so it's really up to you. We just want to create a feeling of support and comfort in the low back and the legs, and we're going to come into the arms. We'll start with the left arm because that's on your side of the camera. So we're going to take just the left arm and we're going to create those same forces. So typically if you create a fist, that's sort of the same thing as when we were turning the toes and the kneecap up. That's going to start, just creating that fist is going to start that feeling of muscles engaging. And then you're going to push the arm into the ground. So you're creating fist or making fist, push the arm down, release fist and arm. And notice how much force you can create just pushing that left arm into the ground and releasing it. And where do you feel that force? Is it just in the arm? Can you feel it into the shoulder joint or even across the chest or the upper back? So we don't need to be able to know muscles' names or anything else. What's best is to feel them, feel where they are in the body. Do you feel any sort of tightening around the shoulder blade, in the back of the arm? And then can you let it go? And if you're a person who carries tension in your neck and shoulders, maybe you recognize some of this, like, oh yeah, that's right where I get my tension, right? You know, you might even feel it in the side of the neck, right? So we're purposely creating that tension pattern so you can recognize it as a tension pattern and then release it. Let's do one more. And let go. And this is a really, really simple one. Hopefully not so simple that I lost you, because I find that it's simple, but very accessible and really profound to help me to notice when I'm creating stress, when stressful situations create tension in my body, because that's often what happens for many of us. Now making that same fist in the left arm, you're going to tighten the muscles around the bones, and then you're going to lift the arm up. And I'm not reaching out, I'm just lifting it up. In fact, if anything, I want to think of plugging the arm bone, the upper arm bone, into the shoulder. So not reaching out, but feel that connection of the arm bone being plugged into the shoulder. Again, I don't have to go way up here. In fact, it's going to probably be more sensational if you just barely lift versus coming all the way up here. But you can play with it. How far do you want to lift? And then let it come down. And if you're having discomfort in your shoulder joint or anything like that, you can have your arm more at your side. So there's lots of ways to explore here. I could be here. I could be out at the side more. I could even go overhead if that's within your range of motion and it's comfortable. So we're making sure that we're making the fist, draw that initial contact of muscles squeezing onto the bones, and then lifting the arm, taking time to check the rest of the body. I mean, do you grit your teeth? Or does your forehead crumple up? These little things we begin to notice. So the face stays soft, the jawbone's relaxed, and then we let it go completely. Again, there's a sense, even for me right now, and this is my happy arm and shoulder, I'm starting to feel fatigue. But I let that register as fatigue because I'm doing something. I'm using my muscles, but I'm using them correctly, versus pain. And sometimes that happens too, is when we've been living with persistent pain, we sometimes feel any sort of discomfort as pain when really it might just be fatigue, right? You're finding these muscles, you're using your muscles, and you're letting them relax. So go all the way in there. Where do you feel it? Is it in the length of the muscles, or is it in a joint? That will help you to tell the difference between pain and fatigue. One more time, lifting that left arm. You can hold it for a few breaths, maybe really tighten it. Notice what goes on, not just in the arm, but in the shoulder girdle on that left side. Right side should be relaxed. And then let it come down. And when I do my comparison of the two arms, I like to slide my arms a little bit more down to my side to where they're really comfortable. And just see yourself, if you can. Image yourself from the fingertips all the way through the shoulder girdle, so right and left hand, and coming to the center of the sternum on the front and the spine in the back. And what can you feel? Keep your brain present. Just let it witness. Is there any difference in the two sides of the body, left arm, right arm, upper chest, upper back? You just take the time to notice that and give our brain a chance to rewire, re-educate itself. Because right now it's saying, if you typically hold tension in that side, it's like, maybe you're feeling a little more relaxed than you typically would. And then we're going to switch. We're going to be doing the right arm. So your left arm could stay at your side, slide it wherever it's comfortable. Also check the bottom half of your body that we haven't created any tension there. So if in between your legs need to move, you need to resettle your pelvis, do that. Right hand and arm, we make a fist first, feeling the muscles wrap around the bones, and then push the arm into the ground. So we're pushing into first, and then releasing. And one of the things I noticed right away is as soon as I went to push the right arm into the ground, my left arm tried to help. It was trying to push in too. So it's like I got to say, have a little conversation, say, hey, left arm, you had your turn, and maybe even reposition it so it doesn't do that. So I'm pushing in with right arm after making the fist and letting it relax. And notice it through the length of the arm, but all the way coming through the shoulder joint, into the front of the chest, the shoulder blade, maybe even feel the shoulder blade. Does the shoulder blade itself press into the ground? That's part of the back of the arm, or the shoulder girdle, we'll say. And then relaxing. So what does it feel like? Are you just pushing the arm into the ground, or do you press the shoulder blade down? Notice the sides of your neck, your jaw. Feel where you're creating that force, and then release the force. Take control of the muscles. And then relax again. Last one, and then we're going to go the opposite with the right arm. So just feel yourself from the fingers coming all the way to the center of the chest and the spine. So we want to include the shoulder girdle in the arm on that right side and the side of the neck. And then make the fist, tighten the muscles to the bones. This time you're going to want to plug the right arm into the shoulder socket, pull it in a little bit towards the center of your body, and then lift it off the ground. So we're pulling away with gravity. And then releasing back down with gravity. That's the easy part, but release slow, feel yourself, let the muscles go. And then tighten that fist, lift up, create that force of tension all the way through the arm, through maybe now you're feeling that upper chest. So we'll start to feel some of those muscles around the front of the chest a little bit more as we lift up. And then releasing down, let that fist go. Feel how the ground is supporting the weight of the arm. And again, lifting up, tightening, and letting go. The other thing is if your neck responds in some way, we don't need to lock our gaze into one space. So, if you're starting to feel like, whoa, this is really going to help me to rock my neck, or your head wants to turn, I like to believe intuition is very powerful during a somatic practice because your body is readjusting itself. And if you step out of its way to some degree, it will do what it needs to do. So listen, just listen. And if your head says, oh, I really need to turn to this shoulder, then don't question it, just do it. Or if you need to readjust your pelvis. And remember, you can keep the hand more down at your side as you're doing these lifts. You can be at the height of the shoulder. You can go all the way overhead. And this is my grumpy arm, so as soon as I go overhead, I feel that grumpiness. And I have to ask myself, is that pain or is it sensation? And is it the kind of pain that's causing tissue damage, or is it the kind of pain where it's like, if I keep going, maybe I'll actually release those muscles because I tend to chronically tighten this right shoulder. Too many years of holding a phone cradle underneath my right ear and babies on my right hip. This right side tends to be more contracted. Not to mention purses and backpacks, all on the right shoulder. So you got to look at how we do things in life, right? Oftentimes we're very one-sided. Now I noticed I have chickens, and when I go to fill the water up, it's a big 5-gallon water thing. I always end up carrying it with my right hand, unless I remind myself to use my left arm every now and again. So this right arm likes to be the strong one. So I'm feeling it contract, but what's really important is letting it release. And I'm going to take it to a position, sliding it up or down to where I know it can completely release. And not just the arm, but the neck, the jaw. Let's do one more with the right arm, lifting it up. So how does your lifestyle come into creating these movement patterns or these contraction patterns, right? Think of all the things you do on one side. Driving, we're always using our right foot. Unless you have manual transmission, congratulations, that's always nice. But typically we're using our right foot. And then we're going to pause again for a moment. If you want to hug your knees in, please feel free to. Rock a little bit. And then this time we're going to add the arms in when we do the pelvic tilting. So it's that same form of lifting up. So I'm pulling, I can either think of it as a pulling away from of the low back or pushing into of the tailbone, up to you. Maybe it's a combination. You're trying at this point to find what's most fluid, efficient, and comfortable. And as I exhale, it could be a pushing into with the low back and or a lifting of the tailbone. So these are just such little subtleties, but they're making you think. Hopefully they're making you stay present in your body. If you want to add that idea of the legs opening on the inhalation, you can, and closing on the exhalation. Do a couple like that, but I'm going to have you add the arms in this time. See if your head is joining in for the fun. Your head's moving, that's always a good sign. The response of the neck to the low back and pelvis. And then maybe just let your legs settle, but continue the pelvic tilting. We're going to add the arms to this. So now as you breathe in and the low back lifts, and you're either lifting low back or pressing tailbone down, however you want to look at it, you're going to turn your arm bones outward and slide your hands overhead. So this is going to become a full body movement. So I'm going to turn, so I'm not just sliding, I'm going to think of my arms like rolling pins, I like to say, and roll them back. So roll the arms so your thumbs might even come to the floor, and then reach back just as high as you can. And you'll feel the whole back arch away from the ground. So you can think you're pulling your back away from the ground, so it's not just the low back, it's the upper back. Or you can think of pushing into with the tailbone and the shoulder blades. Either one's going to accomplish the same move, maybe a combination. But as I exhale, I'm going to slide my arms down, and then I'm going to roll my arm bones towards my body, so towards my heart. You'll feel the backs of the shoulders pull away from or lift. You'll feel the tailbone lift. So the pulling away from is tailbone and shoulders, the two ends of the torso. It's like you're curling up into a little ball. And the pushing into is the center of the spine. And we do that movement fluidly if it's there. Inhale, slide the arms overhead. Feel your back arch, so we're coming onto the tailbone as the low back and upper back lift away from. As you exhale, tailbone and upper shoulders might lift away as you push in with the center of the back. Inhale, belly rises, center of the back rises, arms rotate out. Weight is resting on the tops of the shoulders and the tailbone at the top of the inhale. Exhaling. Shoulders roll in, weight rests in the center of the torso. Shoulders and hips or tailbone lift. If you want to add the legs into this, if it's not juggling too many balls, drop the legs open on the inhalation, close up on the exhalation. And you're still creating these forces of tension, right? So see how much is enough. How much muscular contraction do you really need to make these movements? That's one question. But the other side is explore taking it further than you normally would. So maybe use a little bit extra tightness or extra length than you normally would, going both directions. So you're just exploring changing your movement patterns, whether that's by doing more or less. That's the key. Can you make the same movement with more or less force? And then start to find that place that's that happy place, right? I always think of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. That's my adage that comes to brain, right? Just the right amount, not too much, not too little. And last round. And come back to center. So this whole practice is on our back side, but I'm going to encourage you, we're going to take a little bit longer pause this time, and you could take that pause and just be still in the position you're in if you want to hug your knees in. Or the other thought, because we're on our back, is maybe just for a minute roll onto your side and find your favorite place to roll into your fetal curl, and from that fetal curl, you can be still and rest, or what I like to do is find just little undulations of the spine. Just coming back and forth, the head can respond. Maybe making some noises. You could breathe in your nose and make a soft sound as you breathe out. Think of what we do with small children, right? Or even our pets when we're trying to calm them. We say shh, like it's a way of saying it's okay, right? I remember the first time somebody pointed out to me that in Sanskrit, the language of yoga, all of the words that start with the sh sound are words that somehow invoke peace or calmness or tranquility, including my very favorite, Shavasana, the pose of relaxation, Shanti, which means peace. So that sound is valuable to help calm the nervous system. Breathing in the nose and out the mouth. And we'll just pause for a moment of silence. Another sound is the term Shakti in yoga, which is the divine feminine power. So whether you're male or female, take a moment to honor your power and to honor yourself for doing this practice today. And we're going to roll back over. We've got one more that we're going to do. So take your time. We're just rolling over in bed. Coming back onto our backside. And this time we will, once again, want the legs long. So if the legs going long presents a problem for the low back, meaning it arches and lifts off the back, lifts off the ground and tightens, then you can take the blanket and put it, and so not so much under your knees, but kind of under your thighs a little bit. That's an option for you. I'm going to pull mine out now because I'm a little more relaxed. And coming down to the ground, so this one we call our human X. You're going to widen your legs so that they're maybe just feet slightly wider than the hips. If you need to look, you can, but see if you can feel where your legs are. And then your arms can be at your sides just to the height of the shoulders, or if you want to take them higher. So this is going to be, again, a play. This is not a playbook that's like written in stone. You got to do it this way, so you can play with how high your arms are. You could also say, I want to try my legs wider apart. I want to try my legs closer together, because it's all about releasing muscle patterns, and how we do that is to do things a little bit differently. So start from wherever you want to start. Feel your left leg. You're going to turn your toes and your kneecap up. Tighten those muscles to the bones. And now we're going to put these two movements together. You're going to push the leg into the ground. Feel how that engages it. And then you're also going to pull away from the ground. You're going to lift up. So we're doing both of those. So now it's like really revved up, right? And then you're going to release it down and shake it out. So the pattern here is an X pattern. So think of where your, I like to call it your juicy center. Where's your juicy center right now? If you were to make an X in your body from your left toes to your right fingers and your right toes to your left fingers, where does that X cross in your body? Just visualize where that space is. It's probably somewhere right around the navel center, in the pelvic area, that lower dantian as we call it, or it's the Svadhisthana, the sacral chakra, or the Manipura chakra. Just being present in that space. And now we're going to come into the right hand and arm. So we're coming across the X. Make a fist. Tighten the muscles by making that fist. Then push into the ground and pull away from the ground. Lift the arm up. So feel all of that tension, that force you're creating. If you'd rather use the word force than tension, that's fine. And then release it down. Let it go. Right foot, leg, all the way into the hip. Turn the toes up in the kneecap. Push the back of the leg line into the ground. So push into first. Keep that action. Pull away from. So there's 3 actions going on. Hold it there for a moment. Breathe. And then slowly let it come down. Relax. So this one, again, I encourage you not to do 1 breath per movement. Just make sure you're breathing. But go slow. Take a couple breaths on each one. Now we're going to go across that X from right toes to left hand. Make a fist. Push in first. So we make a fist. That's the first part of the engagement. Push in. Even more tightness. Lift away from. So feel that whole left arm. And notice that the rest of the limbs are relaxed. What part of your torso has to engage, though, to help that left arm lift? And then release it. So we're going to go around in this X pattern. Left leg. Turn the toes and the kneecap up. Push into the ground. Pull away from the ground. So we're simultaneously drawing the kneecap up the thigh, pressing through the heel, toes pointing up. But then we're pushing. We still have that feeling of pushing into even when we pull away from. And then let it go completely. You can shake it out. Right arm. Tighten the fist. Push into. Pull away from. And remember, you can change where your arm is as far as how high or low, more at your waist or more overhead. And then slow release. Feel it release all the way down. Right leg line, toes up, kneecap. Crawl that kneecap up your thigh. Push into the ground with the calf and whatever else is touching the ground. So even notice the tightness through the pelvis, then lift it up. Create all that tension, but so watch that your left leg isn't tightening right now, right? Or upper body yet. Just the right leg. Can you isolate right leg? And then let it come down. Shake it out. Left hand and arm. Make that fist. Squeeze. Push into the ground. Pull away from the ground. And hold with all of that sensation. And recognize it's just sensation. Level of 1 to 10, you can say, how much sensation do you feel? But not pain. Recognize the difference between sensation and pain and letting it go. We'll go around one more time. Left leg and toes. Point up, push into the ground. Might even feel that all the way through the buttocks and the low back, through that left side. Lift away from the ground. And if you haven't, you can vary, again, like I said, how wide your legs are. You can go further out or closer. And then come down, let it relax. Right hand and arm. Fist. Tighten the muscles of the bones. Press into the ground. Lift up. And I just noticed I was starting to press my left arm down, so I had to kindly ask it not to do that. And let go. Relax. Right foot, toes, point up, kneecap draws up, push into the ground. Pull away from the ground. And let go. Shake it out. And finally, left arm. Fist. Push into the ground. Pull away from the ground. And even notice, like I said, the jawline, the neck. So you might feel some tightness through the left side, but is your right side relaxed? And then release. We might feel really spread out here. So before, we've got one more thing we're going to do with the human X. If you want to slide your legs in, maybe just some windshield wipers, or back to that pelvic tilt, I'll leave it up to you. I also like, because the arms have been out like this, like we're ready to give somebody a big hug. Maybe we are, especially right now, right? Missing my hugs. You can give yourself a hug. Wrap your arms around. Maybe rock on your shoulder blades, let your head move. So a little more of organic movement. We're really asking the body. We're being very specific on what we're asking it to do right now. So just organically let yourself move. If that means bringing your knees in. Sometimes I just bicycle pedal my legs to get my joints moving. It's winter here in Wisconsin, so any way we can invite movement in, especially when we're indoors and it's warm. All right, and then we're going to go back into that X position. We're going to do the same thing we were doing with those 3 ways to create force. So it's pointing, the first part of hugging the muscles of the bones, so involving the toes and the kneecap pointing up. We'll do that with the left leg and right arm. So come across your X. Feel where your center is, that juicy center. Come across the X, left toes to right hand, and then push into with left leg and right arm, and pull away from with left leg, right arm. And you might even do a little reach if you want, but feel this. Lower body, left side, upper body, right side. Check to see your right leg and left arm are relaxed. And slowly let go, release. Opposite side. Right toes point upward and kneecap draws up. Left hand, make a fist. Push into the ground. So use that force of meeting the ground with the muscles, even with the bones. Like, what does it feel like to push your bones into the ground? And then lift away from. What does it feel like to lift the weight of the bones away from the ground? Maintain it for a few breaths. Feel that contraction we're creating, right? We're purposely creating tension in the body. And then slow release all the way down. Let it go. We'll do that 2 more times all the way around the X. Feel yourself at your center when you come back. Left leg, right arm. Toes and kneecap up. Fist, push into the ground. So use the force of the ground underneath you to create that tension. And then lift away from the ground. Let it come back down. Release completely. Right leg, left arm, toes point up. Fist, push into the ground. Feel yourself across that X from toes to fingers. Lift away from the ground. And check the other half of the X, that's relaxed. Can you just do from right toes to left arm? And release. Shake it out. So this last round, if you want to change positionally where the arms are or the legs, please feel free to do that. Left leg and toes point up. Right arm. Make the fist. Push into the ground. Keep that sensation of what you found pushing in, and then lift away. Pushing into, pulling away. Still that same premise. We create that force, and then we let all that force go. All that effort, let go. So notice how you're recruiting these muscles. We're turning the toes up and the kneecap. We're making a fist. Now the right leg, left arm. See yourself across that X. When you're ready, push into and pull away from. Engaging the muscles. So feel all of that force. And slowly release down. Let it all go. We're going to do one more thing, and it's the same cross-body pattern we just did. However, we're going to do alternating. So see that X. If you need to take your arms down, do that. Check your head. You can bring your head side to side. So we're again noticing if we're creating force anywhere else in the body. And can we let it go? So left leg to right arm. You know the score here, right? So we create that tension initially by pointing knees and kneecap up and toes, making a fist, push into the ground, pull away from the ground, let go. Right toes to left arm, make a fist, kneecap toes up, push into the ground. Pull away from the ground. Let go. Left toes to right arm. So I'm going to just let you go through this because you might be going faster or slower, but do the push in and the pull away. So we're using gravity. We're using gravity to push into with it. So that's gravity supposedly working on our side. But then we're going against gravity, lifting away. And all that does is create those forces of engagement in the body and then letting go. Let's do one more round wherever you are, alternating sides, and check to see whichever side you're not working with should feel like it's sunning itself at the beach. Slap some sunscreen on, let it go. Switch sides. That was wishful thinking. And now just be present in your body and notice the space where your arms and your legs, your limbs, your periphery, whatever you want to call it, feel where they come into the torso and specifically into your juicy center. Notice your spinal column. Just be still for a moment. And before we go into our relaxation, I'll invite you again, because I know it's a lot of time on our backside, to either do some pelvic tilting, which might feel really juicy again. I often end my practice as I began it. You could even do the arms and legs version if you want. So going back and seeing if this is stored in your memory too, right? Like, we want it to be stored so you could do it on your own without my video, but not so stored that you're going through it and you're already thinking, oh, my practice is over, now I can think about what I want to eat when I'm done, or something like that, right? You're still present in the movement. But if you're done moving and you just want to roll onto your side again, you can find that fetal curl, which is really nourishing and replenishing for your body. If you ever like to take your shavasana on your side here, I often do that after a practice that's been mostly on my back. You could use a blanket between your thighs. That usually makes it more comfy. Some people sleep like that, I do. You could also put something underneath your head. See, I'm just going to pull my blankets in, and there's no reason you can't shavasana on your side. Otherwise, take a moment, do your movements, and find your position where you're going to be able to rest. And back to that word, shavasana. Begins with a sh sound. So that's about creating peace and relaxation. Maybe we messed up the hair along the way, but that's all part of the process. We don't care. Practices of embodiment have absolutely nothing to do with what we look like. It's what we feel like on the inside. It's important to remember that, because when you feel good from the inside, you tend to look good on the outside. There's a radiance that comes in. Or to quote Maya Angelou, my favorite quote is always, it doesn't matter what you're said or did. Switch this out. It's how you feel, right? I would add to that, it doesn't matter what you look like. It's how you feel when you're done. And notice how you feel. Do you have more awareness of the muscles in your arms and your legs? Or the connection point of arms and legs into the torso? Just being sensitive to those areas. Can you visualize your joints in your legs, the ankles, the knees, the hips, the arms, your wrists, your elbows, and your shoulders? And anywhere along those path lines into the torso, do you feel as if there's any tension? And sometimes we need to move slightly, and if you do, please do, so the arms closer to the body or further away, or palms up or down can bring more or less relaxation into the shoulders. the width of your legs, just allowing your toes to turn out if they naturally do that. And other times we don't need to move to create that comfort. In fact, we don't have to create the muscular contraction. We work more with the pranic body, which is the energy body, the life force. And do an informal body scan for yourself. So it's like you're walking in the store, but the store is your body. And you're going to take inventory of anything that you happen to notice in your body. Doesn't have to be everything, just whatever is presenting itself to you right now. And it presents itself to you through feeling, through sensation. What is that sensation? Organize it. Maybe even imagine writing it down. What is that sensation that just guided you, your brain, to it in your body? And is it a difficult or painful or a space of discomfort? Just notice it as you breathe in. And if it is anything you're ready to get rid of, imagine breathing it out. And just continue to allow your body to communicate to your mind. Your mind's just listening. It's waiting for that next space in your body to present itself. And when it does, you go in again. Open the door, say hello. And if it presents itself in a feeling of displeasure, notice it on the inhale and breathe it out on the exhale. But also remember to take note of the spaces that feel good, that feel comfortable, or even the spaces that you don't feel anything at all, but they still want you to acknowledge them. And you can breathe into those. And as you breathe out, see that sensation, whether it's lightness or comfort or peace, just that awareness of pleasure in your body. Send that to other areas in and around that space in your body. Send that overflow of pleasure that you feel on the inhale, you're aware of it on the inhale, and as you exhale, send it into other parts of your body. Give your body an example of what you want it to feel like, what you expect it to feel like. And know that it wants that same thing for you. You're always welcome to take more time in your relaxation. Please do. That's the beauty of a home practice. You can turn the video off and stay right as you are, or come into a seated meditation. If you would like to finish the class with me, I encourage you to start some movements, maybe just fingers and toes. That's where we started today, was at the periphery, ankles and wrists. Acknowledging the movement and the muscles, the beautiful muscles of your body that create this movement, that felt sense. And then maybe a full body stretch or hugging your knees in, and you can roll to your side, pausing on your side and coming back up, or if you're already on your side, use your hands, the strength of your arms to walk yourself up. Close out of our practice, taking my hands to the heart center. Thank you for exploring your body with me today in a very simple, but I find a very intimate way, and acknowledging all of the ways that your body talks to you and communicates to you through sensation. Peace, joy, love, and light. If you're still here and you enjoyed this video, the videos released for somatics are on Wednesdays. I release one every Wednesday morning at 10:30 Central Time. In addition to that, if you'd like to practice with me and receive comments, I do some instructional work with you. I do a Zoom class every Friday morning, Somatic Yoga at 10:30 Central Time. So please feel free to join me. Namaste.